Welcome beyond the Reiki Gateway. I'm your host, Andrea Kennedy. Like countless others, Reiki found me when I wasn't even looking, and then it ignited a whole new world of questions. This podcast explores topics of interest for the spiritually curious. Join me for discussions and special guests on subjects such as past lives, crystal healing, spiritual awakening, ascension, energy healing, and more, all to assist and inspire you along your unique soul's journey. This episode is sponsored by Mainstream Reiki, offering live and online Reiki classes and a membership community to help Reiki practitioners succeed and grow in their practice. Find out more at mainstreamreiki.com. Welcome to Beyond the Reiki Gateway. I'm your host, Andrea, and today I am welcoming two beloved guests here at the show. You may remember actually both of them. Jodie Helm and Kathleen Johnson are here, and we're going to catch up with them, and we're going to discuss their new collaborative work that they're calling the Angelic Activation Practitioner Program. And that sounds really exciting and new. But first, I want to share a little bit about these two. Jody is a retired teacher living in Texas. She became a Reiki master, which helped lead her to channel the archangels and other high guides. She feels her life's purpose is to share their messages, which she does primarily on medium.com to thousands of readers. She also offers oracle card readings and spiritual guidance sessions. Jody promotes whatever brings an individual love, joy, hope, and peace. Kathleen Johnson's back with us too, and Kathleen lives in Pennsylvania. Many of you know her from our first 3 seasons co-hosting the podcast. Kathleen is a Reiki master teacher, past life regressionist, certified crystal healer, and spiritual mentor. And both of these ladies are authors as well. We could say so much more about them, and of course, they're working together now, and I want to dive in and find out more about that. And so we will, of course, link everything to find them and learn more about everything that they do in the show notes and also the video description on YouTube. But okay, I've talked enough. So Kathleen and Jody, welcome. I'm so glad to have you here.
Hello.
Very happy
Great
to be here.
Yes.
This is exciting, Andrea.
I know, right? Jody, it's great to see you as well. You know, when you were a guest before, when Kathleen and I were hosting the show together, we talked about the angels, the archangels. That's who you were really channeling back then, at least what we knew at the time. And you came on to talk about the shift. And so if you could just explain a little bit for listeners who might be new, what is the shift? And oh gosh, and then let's talk about that for a few minutes.
Well, we actually have done a whole show on that.
We have.
Just briefly, the shift refers to the earth moving from the 3rd dimension into the 5th dimension. And we're making our way towards a better world. It's going to take some time, and it's going to be chaotic. In the meantime, we're going to have to figure out how to rebuild some of the structures that the world that's not working for the world anymore. So it's going to be a long road, but the good news is the angels tell us that we're making great progress. In fact, so much so that there's not going to be any turning back. I mean, the shift cannot be stopped anymore. Enough people have awakened to the point where we're headed in the right direction, and we're due for some rough spots, but we're not going to be deterred. Eventually we'll get there. So have hope.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Kathleen used to talk about the tipping point all the time. I remember that.
We've reached and surpassed the tipping point.
Exactly.
According to several people who specifically focus on that.
Yeah.
I focused on that in my last couple newsletters. I referenced the tipping point a lot. I referenced that a lot with clients as well, because we've passed it. We are on the way. And as Jody said, there's no going back.
Right.
Yeah. It is exciting. I find it very hopeful, but yeah, it is chaotic. It is difficult at times.
It's going to be more chaotic before we finish. And
Absolutely.
The way the angels say it is, enough of us have seen that things need to change, but we haven't figured out how to do that yet. We're still working through that. and figuring out where we need to be. We know we need to move forward. We know we need to make some changes. We're just not sure what those changes are going to be yet. So that's what we're all working for.
Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, there's uncertainty, right? But I mean,
Sure.
everything's uncertain. It's like it's just across the board, but there's
Right.
scary uncertainty probably and more hopeful uncertainty because it's new. It's an opportunity to, recreate things. And
Well,
so,
change, even good change is always uncomfortable. It's always challenging, right?
mhm.
So, and right now it's all about change. So we are going to be uncomfortable and we are going to be challenged, but we'll get there.
And speaking really, I guess, of uncertainty and not knowing where we're headed, you both have started something new with this program that you're offering. And, you never planned that, right? And so you're headed into.
No, we did not.
Yeah.
No.
So can you talk about a little about what is this program and who's it for? And I don't know how it all came to be.
Okay. I'll be happy to take the reins on that if that's okay with you,
Yes,
Jody.
please.
Yeah.
Because you brought me on board.
Yeah. I according to the archangels, I was the first one they contacted about this. I only knew that in the past year, but there were a series of synchronicities that I didn't know were synchronicities at the time that led us to where we are now. And honestly, when you say we started it, no, we didn't start it. We were just kind of taken along for the ride. A few years ago, a client of mine, a Reiki client, who I knew was an angelic soul, I was able to detect soul energy in people, and I had been doing that for some time. Brought about by my work with Linda Backman, and you remember Linda. And I was getting to that point where I was able to just talk to someone and know if they were an angelic soul or not. Anyway, this client told me that in a conversation with Michael, the archangel, my client had, he told her that I was an angelic activation practitioner. And she put that in an email to me, and I could still remember how I felt when I read that. It really was like someone had slapped me upside the head. I was stunned, and I burst into sobs. I just started to cry. It was so real. I knew it was true, but I had no idea what it meant. Like, okay, so what do I do with that? Of course, I Googled it. Google was no help at all for a change. So
Google
I
has
knew
its
that
limits.
this was something, okay, this is odd. And I didn't do anything with it. I just sort of, okay, I'm going to let it go. I don't even know what this means. And then you and I, Andrea, we had the podcast and life went on. I happened to start reading on Medium, started writing on Medium as well. And I happened across Jodie's articles. And I was very impressed and so interested in everything she wrote. And I remember talking to you and saying, we need to have her on as a guest, right?
Yep.
And of course, you were all for it. And I reached out to Jody, since I was the one who did the guest management at the time. And what I used to do was contact the potential guests by email. But I received such strong guidance to call her instead of emailing her. So I did. I called her. And as soon as I heard her voice, I'm like, oh my goodness, this is an angelic soul. And I told her that. She's like, what?
Never heard of that before, but at the same time, I knew it was absolutely true.
Mm-hmm.
I knew it to be the truth that it was.
And if I could just check in really quickly for our listeners and our viewers on YouTube who might not be sure what an angelic soul is, could you define that for us?
Sure. In my work with Linda Backman, who's also been on the podcast a couple times, I learned about soul types. Okay. And as of right now, we know of 3 different soul types. There are earth-based souls, and they are souls who come into a body primarily in the earth realm. It's a certain type of soul, okay? Then you have your interplanetary souls. These are souls who originated on other worlds, other planets, other galaxies, other universes, who knows? And they come to Earth to kind of step in when needed. And then you have angelic souls. These are the souls that are created in the angelic realm. They are not angels per se, but they carry angelic energy. And they are souls who do not come to Earth very often. And it is only when there is a great need to be of assist to humanity and the planet. And as we were just discussing a few minutes ago, that time is now. We know this. This is not a secret to anybody living on Earth right now.
Yeah.
Right. And no soul is better than another. Some people think, oh, an angelic soul, that'd be so nice. Well, yeah, sure. But being an earth-based or an IP soul, interplanetary, is just as good. And the archangels tell us that we are all equal. They view us as brothers and sisters. We are not less than they are. So, if anybody listening has any idea that, oh, it must be really cool to be an angelic soul, well, it has its good points, just as it has its bad points,
and
right?
it has its challenges, right?
I am not an angelic soul. I'm an interplanetary soul. But, okay, so that is like the crash course on soul types. And if you wanted to get more information, you can surely listen to Linda Backman's episode on Beyond the Reiki Gateway. And, I'm sure she would be very happy to fill you in. Does that help?
It does. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think, I just heard the other day, there was a comment that I read, I think it was on the podcast YouTube channel, and somebody was asking that very question, Kathleen. And that's why I thought it was a good one to point out. There was a misunderstanding that angelic souls or angelic realm souls were actually angels in body.
Right.
And so you did it beautifully.
I'm glad I said that.
Yeah.
They're not. They are
you did it just beautifully. Well, and it's also true, isn't it, that a being can incarnate in more than one body at a time.
Exactly.
So, it's not just 1 equals 1 as far as, that's concerned. So,
right.
Yeah. But yeah, wonderful explanation.
Thank you.
If I can just add that one of the characteristics of angelic souls is that we're kind of pre-wired for communication with the archangels, which is very directly related to what Kay and I have been working on. That's kind of what got it started. So,
right.
Okay.
Good point. And we didn't know that until we got more into this program, right, Jody, and into this project. And then it was like, oh, this is a pre-wiring thing. Okay. So, yeah.
Okay. So you called Jody and you went, whoa, this is an angelic soul. And then what happened?
I told her. Because I couldn't help myself. I'm an angelic soul. I just know it. Well, she very graciously agreed to appear on our podcast. As you know, we had her on twice. I think the first time was to talk about what she does, channeling the archangels. And I remember at the time, it was one of the very top episodes that we produced. I mean, it was extremely popular. And then she also came back on later and to talk about the shift. And that was also quite popular. So, and in the meantime, Jody and I became friends. We stayed in touch, and one thing led to another. And I forget exactly how it came about, though, that I was supposed to.
Oh, I didn't forget.
Okay, then you take it from here, because I laid all the foundation there. It's up to you now to explain the rest.
Okay. So then I got an email from Kathleen, and she asked me, she didn't give me any details. She just asked me if I would channel the archangels and ask them what was an angelic activation practitioner. And
Google. She
she
tried to
didn't.
Google. She tried to
Yeah,
Google the
yeah,
archangels.
yeah. Google is very limited when it comes to spiritual things. But in
Yeah.
any case, she didn't give me any details. She just asked me if I would channel and ask what angelic activation practitioner was. So, I mean, I had no idea where this was going, but I mean, anytime someone asks me to channel for them, I usually do, especially if it's a friend. And at that time, I considered both of you my friends. You've asked me to channel things before, Andrea, and so I was happy to do that. And the answer I got was it did explain that an AAP was someone who could open that communication between an angelic soul and the archangels. Because, for instance, in my case, I didn't start channeling till I was retired. I haven't done this all my life, and I was connected to the archangels that whole time, but I didn't know it. And so they explained that an AAP was someone who could activate that connection and get that channeling started. And then they would kind of take it from there. So they also went into a few details about what that looked like. And they mentioned a couple of the chakras, which I included in the email that I returned to Kathleen and gave her all this information. And what blew my mind was she had gotten the same information about the key chakras that were involved. I mean, there were just too many things too much information that we both had in different ways that was identical to think that it was coincidental or, I mean, it was obvious to me, to both of us, that we were onto something and it was important.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Remember
Thank you.
that?
I kind of forgot that part. Yeah, but I also remember you said that when you read the email, the archangels started bothering you and wouldn't let you go until you channeled them. Remember?
Yes, they were. Usually when I channel, I start the conversation. I ask a question or what have you, but they were like, channel us, come on, let's get this going. I mean, they were real excited. And it wasn't something that I could put off because they weren't about to let me put it aside momentarily even. So it was definitely a sense of urgency attached to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
They
That in
also went on
itself
to
was
say
odd.
that because of the shift, they needed AAPs so that these angelic souls who were already pre-wired to channel them could be activated sooner than maybe was originally planned in their life plan. Because we're involved in the shift and it's at such a crucial point. Certainly back then that was before we had reached the tipping point, and it was at such a crucial time that they needed more help, more boots on the ground, so to speak.
Yeah.
So
that was relayed also.
So is it fair to say then that the objective of the program is to activate angelic souls in a way that they can access their gifts that they came in with earlier so that they can be
Yes.
more help in the transformation, ascension, or shift? Is that right?
Yes, which triggered me to ask, well, I mean, at first when I started channeling, I thought, well, did I miss the signs here? I mean, I started so much later in my life, and I thought and they told me, no, the timing was perfect for you. Think about when I was younger, I was raising a family, I was working full time. My husband was very sick, and I was taking care of him, and I could not have done what I do now at that time. And so my concern was, okay, well, you're talking about early activation. What about people? I mean, is that going to be okay with them? Because I didn't want to be part of something that added hardship. And, they said, no, we would never let that happen. But for those that can handle it, and it's not bad timing, it's opportune timing, then we would like to move that along and open them sooner than what might have originally been planned.
Right. Right.
Well, that really makes sense though, because, I think we all agree the children being born today are very different than we were
Absolutely.
when we were born. And so it would make a lot of sense for me to have those children being raised by, more progressed or more activated parents,
Right.
So,
Right.
yeah, I think in that sort of way, they are supporting the new way to raise these children. And those children are going to benefit by role models that are connected.
In many ways, that's true. In many cases, that's true. Not always,
Yeah.
but yeah, the shift started moving along in 2012. So the angels have noted several differences between the kids that were born from 2012 on as compared to the kids born before that. There are major differences that we're just now beginning to see.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. But that's you asked about the objective of the project. For a long time, it was a project. It became a program finally this past March when we launched it finally after a year plus. The second objective is to activate and educate those who want to become angelic activation practitioners for
Right.
the purpose of activating angelic souls and other practitioners. Because, as the angels have said to us repeatedly, this was never designed to be something that Jody and I were to do alone. Because, if it had been, it would be way too burdensome. What, I'm supposed to do this for till they carry me out feet first? No. So seriously, I'm old. Come on, people.
Well, do you remember when we first started? I remember distinctly saying, look, I'm in, but I got to tell you, this is horrible timing.
Yeah.
Totally agreed.
I'm like, the timing is just terrible.
Oh, yeah. We had personal issues going on, professional issues going on, and both of us agreed this was anything but convenient.
It was not convenient. I remember you, Jody, saying, I can see my retirement going up in flames. Pretty much.
Oh. Yeah.
And it still
and for
is
a while,
up in flames.
It did, yeah. It was very, very taxing, very involved.
Yeah, it really was. And, the angels are very patient with us, but there were times when we were just pulling our hair out. And things started to come to a standstill. After a few months, they weren't giving us anything. Because we originally thought we were going to be writing a book about this. That was the plan.
That's true. Oh,
Remember?
I forgot about that. But yeah, I even wrote an outline for the book and the whole bit.
Yeah.
And we started, in that vein. But I remember both of us being so frustrated because initially they gave us a lot of information, a lot of details, and then it kind of stopped. And I was the one really in charge of the channeling part of it. And so I would ask them, okay, so what are next steps and what do we need to do? And they would say things like, well, we'd like you and Kathleen to discuss that and come up with your own plan. And then we can add to it. And, and we were just going nuts because we wanted to get with the program. We wanted to get this thing going.
Let's get this rolling,
we were both
folks.
very highly motivated people, and we wanted to get it going. And it became pretty clear that it wasn't going to be a book. So we really lacked direction. And the angels were not forthcoming with direction
Not
at
at all.
all. And they kept saying, well, take some time to get to know each other, and everything. And oh, we were just so frustrated. And it ended up being the best thing. I mean, because what they were saying was there's more going on here than just this project. We brought you two together for a reason, and they wanted us to build our friendship and to build our relationship. And now I don't know what in the world I would do without her. But at the time,
Same
we were
here.
just so frustrated. We were, and eventually we got back with it. But it was only after I remember we decided to talk every week. So every Sunday we would talk, and initially would say, okay, I'm going to work on this, this, and this, and I'm going to work on this, this, and this. And then when we get together again next week, we can discuss it and update each other. Well, after a couple of times of that, we didn't have anything to work on really other than brainstorming or what have you. And thankfully, both of us enjoyed our time visiting on the phone anyway, so we kept that going. But that was what was at the base of it, is to build our relationship before we built the program. And as always, they knew what they were talking about, and it worked to both our advantage and the advantage of the program eventually. It's just at the time, it seemed like it was moving so slowly.
Right.
Yeah.
But, there came a point when I guess the angels realized that our relationship was solid enough to move forward with this. And that's when everything started to come full force. And honestly, this entire project, when it was still in the works, it didn't come from Jody or I. It was created and designed by the archangels. Jody channeled the information, but they told her what we were going to do. And they always kind of, a little disclaimer, well, you don't have to do any of this. It's completely up to you. Oh, really? Yeah.
Lee and I were like, yeah, we've got that,
Yeah.
I mean, and I mean, we did shut down a couple of things, but for the most part, we took our cues from them, and we might have brainstormed, but then they took our ideas and built them up. So most of the program really is their program that they used us to develop.
Right.
Yeah.
So.
Wow, I think a lot of people can relate to your story because, well, I'm going to rewind a little bit even further. When you were talking, Jody, about, oh, am I late to this? Like, did I come to this late? I think so many people have that worry, right? And what you shared is perfect for it. It is always the right time. Yeah. So no regrets, right? I mean, if we want to reassure people, it's never, you're always right on time. You never miss the train. You're never late.
Right.
It's always
and,
perfect.
So many people worry that they don't know what their life purpose is. And I always tell them what the angels say: don't worry about finding your life purpose. It will find you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's absolutely true. I mean, Kathleen and I are definitely examples of that taking place.
Yeah. Right. Well, and I think it's important also to realize, I just had a mentoring client the other day, and we were talking about this, and people are making a tremendous difference in the world, doing things that seem maybe mundane, and that it's not going to end up on the news or, on a viral video, but it's important.
It all contributes, and
it all
important.
Does. Yeah,
it all does. All important. Even the people that I feel impatient with, or that irritate me for whatever reason, the people who clearly are not on the same path that I'm on, the angels tell us, everybody serves a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And all of
Oh,
those
yeah.
purposes are important and they're intertwined. So, you wouldn't have the unity that we're seeing developing now if you didn't have those people who worked on the polarity, right?
Mhm.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you how many clients I've spoken to that stress about their age and how
Mhm.
they came to this late. And I've had this conversation over and over and over
Yeah.
again. And I know how that feels because I came to it all later in life. And
Mm-hmm.
now I'm like, considered a senior citizen. But oh well, it happens. It happens when it happens, right? I spoke to a
Divine
woman
timing.
last week. What's that? Oh, I didn't
Divine
hear you.
timing.
Exactly. I spoke to a woman last week and she said something about, well, I'm middle aged. I'm like, well, I'm old. I mean, what's your point? Like, it's all good. And the same woman asked me, well, what do I do? What can I do to make a difference? And did you know you were going to be doing something big? She asked me, and I'm like, first of all, no. And secondly, I don't consider that what I do is anything big. And like you just said, Andrea, it's these mundane things, that
Right.
look like they don't matter. Like smiling at someone on the street, allowing someone to go ahead of you in a grocery line, letting someone go ahead of you in traffic, um, smiling when you feel like screaming at someone, just being kind. I think what it comes down to is kindness is a superpower that we need to
Right.
exercise far more often. Kindness
Mhm.
is going to save the world because
Kindness
kindness
and
is an energy
compassion.
of love. Exactly.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
kindness and compassion are like twins, and they
Yeah.
are both love energies. And
Mhm.
Yes.
love is the highest emotion that we can strive for. So, mundane things, they matter. No act of
Absolutely.
kindness, no matter how small, is ever wasted. Now, I didn't say that. That's a quote from someone, and I'm sorry I can't recall who it is, but it's true. No act of kindness is ever wasted. And
Yeah.
I would like to reassure the listeners of that. And that's truth. That is truth. So
Yeah.
if you think that you have to do some kind of grand gesture or become famous and, command huge audiences who are going to listen to you speak about what you've learned now. I mean, if you do that and that's part of your path, go for it. But
Yeah.
you can just be like me, you know, somebody working in Bloomsburg, Pennsylvania, activating angelic souls. you know, that's a part. That's a big part. And
Yeah.
it all matters, is the bottom line. It all
Yes.
matters.
It does. The other part too I wanted to highlight is hello, it's Andrea. And in addition to being your host here at the podcast, I'm the founder of Mainstream Reiki, where bringing Reiki further into the mainstream is my mission. I offer quality Reiki classes of all levels to students attending live from around the world. And I've built a membership community as well to help Reiki people connect with each other through discussions, events, and Reiki practice. So if you're considering learning Reiki or you already have, I invite you to visit mainstreamreiki.com to discover your next step in your Reiki journey. Thank you. And now back to the show. I love how you were frustrated together. The archangels kind of made you both
Oh
frustrated.
yeah.
And you know
Oh
what?
yeah.
There's that saying like, um,
Misery
I
loves company.
that one.
well, okay,
Yeah.
that'll work. That'll work, right? And so having that shared frustration was such a blessing because it drew you
It was.
together and you had that
hmm
shared experience. So,
Sure.
Yeah.
yeah, again, it's like everything is purposeful. Kathleen has always said that. And
hmm
it just really is highlighted here, in your story. So let's really get to it then. So, number one, I can just hear people out there. They're like, well, okay, am I an angelic soul? So let's just let them know. How might they know? What are the clues that they may know? Because I guess, and I got a little ahead of myself, in your program, does the practitioner Well, I already know the answer to this. But I'm going to ask it anyway out loud. And so the practitioner who activates angelic souls, they don't have to be angelic. They can be
That's
any
correct.
kind of soul,
That's right.
correct?
Right.
Okay, so
That's right.
anybody can be a practitioner.
Right.
But for the activation, they're only activating angelic soul people. Is that
No.
okay? So that
No.
okay. Okay. So please
Yeah.
tell.
Do
Initially,
you want me to
that's what
take
we
that one?
thought. Yeah, let me just say this. Initially, that's what we thought.
Oh,
And then, of course, the angels had to weigh in with, the disclaimer, right? All right, Jody, you take that from here.
Okay, so what the activation does, if you are indeed an angelic soul, then as I said, you're kind of pre-wired for that channeling connection between you and the archangels. But it can also activate other soul types to either connect with the archangels, which is likely, or other high guides. Okay, there's never any concern about connecting with other entities that you're not comfortable with. It's all a very protected process, a very safe process. But what they tell us is, and we've both listed on our websites the verbal activation that they can read, because there's really two tracks that you can take. You can get an activation for an angelic soul, or really we call it an angelic soul, but it's for any soul that will help them connect with high guides. Or there's another track to become a practitioner. Okay, so two different ways to go, but you don't have to be an angelic soul. But a lot of times when you read these verbal activations, you're pulled towards one or the other. So that's a good indication. But I also want to add, because I did write a course that goes with the activations so that it gives people who want to be either an angelic soul or an AAP activated. It gives them an idea of what to expect. It gives them a good background information that they can recognize a channel when it happens, and recognize which clairs are going to be involved, because of course everyone's different. I don't ever, or I very rarely see the angels. I hear them. Whereas some people see them, some people just get downloads of information. I mean, the different people are stronger in different clairs. So it gives them an idea of different kinds of channeling and the different clairs involved, but it also gives them, and these are channel checklists, to give them an idea if they are an angelic soul, an earth-based soul, or an IP soul. And I need to add here that we based our course and our work on Linda Backman's work, but there's lots of different views of different soul types, and none of them are absolutely complete. We just chose hers because we liked it. It's easy to understand. But I'll back up what Kathleen said. It's not that one soul is better than another. One soul type is better than another. We all have equally important purposes and things about us that make us unique. But it kind of, when you take the course, if you do take the course, it gives you an idea of what kind of soul type you are. It gives you an idea of what clairs you're likely to be strongest in, that kind of thing. And all of those things were channeled. So it doesn't just work for angelic souls. It can work for everybody. It's just kind of targeted towards any soul who connects with the archangels.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
interesting.
We're
Okay.
completely non-discriminating. Everybody's
Yeah.
welcome.
Well, I think that
Right.
makes sense,
Of course it does.
because I think, for me, if I'm looking at taking a course or learning a modality or, anything like that in the spiritual realm, I always look at that. It's like, are we excluding people here?
Right.
Are we is this judgmental? Are we doing a
Exactly.
hierarchy? Because that stuff kind of turns me off.
Exactly.
Sure.
Yeah, and I didn't realize that this was, that everybody could do this. I mean, I think I knew everybody could be a practitioner, but I didn't realize the other side. So I'm really glad that we talked about that.
Yeah, it's a
Well,
very
and
good point.
consider we're talking about the archangels, and they love us all
Oh yeah,
Right.
equally and unconditionally. So it's not likely that they would ever say, no, don't measure up here. I mean,
Right.
they welcome everyone, and they are eager to work with everybody who wants to work with them.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we had a lot of conversations, Jody, you and I, about this very thing that Andrea just mentioned. We were so careful not to exclude anyone or to be in
Right.
any way judgy of anyone. I mean, we were concerned about that. We really did not want to do that, to cross any lines. It was very important to us to make it all inclusive. And the archangels, of course, they showed us how to do that through the information that Jody channeled. So that was a huge relief, and it was good for
Yeah.
us to learn that the angelic soul activations could also be used for interplanetary souls or Earth-based souls, because it would open two-way communication with spirit. Maybe the archangels, maybe the high guides, who knows? Maybe the ascended
Right.
masters, and so it's all good. It can never do any harm. It's like Reiki in that regard. It can't hurt at all. It can only benefit you. How it benefits you is really dependent upon the individual, their
Yeah.
purpose, and where they are on their path.
And we're all connected to high guides.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody on earth has high guides that they are attached to, that they have contracted to work with while they're on earth. So a lot of times those are archangels, and other times they're highly advanced souls, ascended masters, like you said. There's lots of different kinds of high guides, and
Mm-hmm.
everybody has a team of high guides. So this activation helps activate that link that you already have with them.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes, and a lot of times it's the archangels, but it's not exclusive to the archangels.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I think it's very interesting. And I would imagine if someone already has a bit of a connection, then it would be strengthening to that connection,
absolutely.
perhaps.
Mm-hmm,
Yes.
Yeah.
mm-hmm,
Yes.
You
In fact,
mentioned,
a lot. Go ahead. I'm sorry. In fact, a lot of the clients that I've activated thus far already had a relationship with the angels and were very
right.
eager to make it even clearer in their lives. And I was very happy to accommodate, because it's just such a wonderful gift. But I've also activated people that are not angelic souls, and that's okay. They too are reaping the benefits of it. So,
Right. And I've had people say, well, Jody, I'm not a writer like you. Even if I connect with the archangels, I can't write articles on Medium. I said, don't worry about it. I mean, that you're going to run with this however, in whatever way suits you the best. And the archangels, or whoever your high guides are, will guide you along that path.
mm-hmm.
So it's using the gifts that you already possess in a way that advances the shift, or that helps other
Right.
people, or
Exactly.
that spreads kindness and compassion, whatever it may be. As we said, all of those things are important, and whatever guides you connect with will help you along that path, and they're going to
Right.
cater everything to you.
Right.
And I mean, I very rarely disagree with the angels and tell them I don't want to do something, but I always have that option. And high guides would never try to force you to do anything that you don't want to do. I mean, they may encourage you to stretch a little bit. Lord knows that Kathleen and I stretched a lot in this project,
Yeah.
but high guides would never compel you to do something. I mean, they couldn't anyway. They can't, no one can force you to do anything. But
Free will,
there
baby.
also would not there would also not be any hard feelings or pressure or, there's guidance, but it's up to you whether or not you follow the guidance.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well,
Always.
we're sovereign. We have free will. And,
Yes.
and that's
Free
a
will,
really good
sovereign,
point that you
great.
make.
I love that word sovereign, and that
Yeah.
says so much.
I do too.
Yeah. And it's like a group of friends. If you talk to your group of friends, they'll all tell you different things, give you different
Right.
advice and suggestions
Sure.
and whatever. And at the end of the day, you get to decide who you'll listen to and if you'll listen to them. But yeah, there's
Right.
no shoulds, no shoulds in when we talk about high guidance, for sure.
That's true.
Can you talk a little bit about this? Because now you got my wheels turning and I'm like, oh,
Uh-oh.
I'm an IP
Well,
soul. I could
we
do
have
this.
accomplished our jobs. We've got our wheels turning now.
Andrea's wheels are turning. Look
Oh,
out.
yeah. All right. So if I or a listener wanted to find out more, we can, go to your site and, read all about that. But can you give us the Cliff's Notes version? Is it what is it? Is it a course? Does it take a long time? What's the basic information?
Well, the information is included on each of our sites, our respective sites, Jody's and mine. The information on each of our sites is identical. We just kind of the same thing. There is a process. The process is as long or as short as it needs to be for each individual. Most people blow through it pretty quickly. We have steps on the website under the Angelic Activation Program tab. The first thing is to, first of all, read the written activations, see how those resonate or not with you. And if you're interested, there's several, I think there's 5 placement questions. We call them placement questions, guiding questions that ask about, have you ever had any kind of spiritual training? Anything about channeling? What do you know about the clairs? Things like that, to kind of get a sense of where the individual is at on their journey. They submit those questions to a specific email that we have for that purpose. And either Jody or I, generally Jody, will review the answers. Okay, she does a lot of that part of it.
That's the school teacher.
Exactly.
Yes. Well, our backgrounds are our strengths also, and it played perfectly for this project.
Right.
So those 5 placement questions are channeled from the archangels.
Right.
And it's as much to guide us on how to guide that person as anything else, because Kathleen and I take our responsibility in this project very seriously. We do not want to just have people sign up, do the activation, and turn them loose. That's not what this is about. No. We want to make sure that they are adequately and comfortably prepared. And part of that is I would say for the majority, taking the course that was written for the AAP project, because that's part of that preparation that they need. And then the course isn't very long, but it has reflective questions before and after each part to help them get ready for the information and then help them process the information and generate whatever questions they have. And of course, there's those checklists that we talked about that are also channels to give them some guidance. And now I'm going to turn it back over to Kathleen, because once they finish the course, and the course is very interactive. Once they answer the questions, they send their answers to me. And then I address whatever questions that they have. I add to the information that I feel they need based on how they answered the questions. And then once the course is completed, then Kathleen takes over and does the energetic part. So I'll turn it back over to her.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note that the course is not mandatory. It's not like, you have to take it. However, I want everyone to keep in mind that this course, in essence, was designed and created by the archangels, channeled by Jody. I contributed a small amount about soul types based on what I know and what Linda Backman has taught and what I've been able to channel on my own. But the vast majority of it was channeled. And as such, it is a unique document. I mean, it's not something you can look up on Google. Like, you could always look up what the different clairs are, and you're going to get a list.
Sure.
You can look up ways of channeling, and a lot of stuff will come up. But you're not going to get that. You're not going to get what this course embodies. The reflective questions, the checklists, all of that comes from the archangels. I've had every client who's come to me for an activation has taken this course so far. And everyone has said what a tremendous help it was and how it really helped them to look at themselves honestly and what they wanted out of their lives and where they were on their path. I mean, I haven't heard anyone say anything except really, really good things about it. And of course, I mean, it came from the archangels. How could it be bad? But it's not mandatory. Now, some people would come to this and go, oh, I've been channeling, I've been doing this, maybe they don't need the course, and that's fine. In that case, they would then come to me to schedule the activation. And that does happen from time to time. But the vast majority of people opt to take the course. And I recommend it for anybody who is unsure. Absolutely. It's definitely worth it. I had one client, a Reiki client, who opted for it. She said she got through it in 3 hours. So that gives you an idea. And, she was very motivated, by the way, but it's still pretty fast, but it can be done.
That was the course she got through in 3 hours, you said? Okay.
Yeah.
And then the activation, they set that up with you. Is that on Zoom or how does that work?
As Jody and I say, she does all the channeling. I do all the energy work. It's kind of how we divide it. I mean, our roles overlap a great deal, obviously, because we collaborate on this. But she does the channeling and she does the teachery things.
We play to our strengths, right?
Right. And I do the energy work. If they then, once Jody has reviewed the course or has spoken to these people about, if they want to proceed and if she thinks they're ready and you sure you want to do this, this is great. We want you to do what you want to do. They then approach me, they schedule an activation. And usually most people reach out to me via email first, or they can schedule directly online. And the activation is handled, for me at least, very similarly as a Reiki session. Okay. In fact, I conduct the activation procedure within a Reiki session. And the procedure itself was crafted by the archangels. They told us.
They told us step by step.
By step. This is what you do. This is the next thing you do. I mean, it's that detail. And, I have my little checklist, my step-by-step thing printed up so I don't forget anything. Before we go to the activation itself, though, I have about an hour-long conversation with the client. I want to see how they're doing, what they've been doing, see if there's any gaps in what they've learned or any questions they may have about anything at all. And those conversations can get really deep, and people find them to be very helpful. And when it really is like a spiritual guidance session, So at the end of the guidance session, I do a Reiki session in which the activation procedure takes place. And again, I have noticed such a change in my sessions over the past year or so. They are pretty much directed by the archangels. I mean, I'm told what to do. It's like, oh, you don't need to do that. And I argue occasionally, but I don't too much anymore. I go, why? I want to. It makes me feel better. No, you don't need to do that. It's unnecessary. And they're so calm about it. And I'm just going, meh, But anyway, I generally say, okay, I acquiesce. But they are so different now. And and I noticed that Reiki just is a beautiful addition to the activation procedure. The energy in these sessions is unbelievable. I mean, I've told Jody, I come out of there, and the first few that I did, I said, I don't know that I can do this. I think this might kill me. I mean, I was so tired. I was like dragging. I felt
Exhausted.
like my heart was racing. The energy is such a high vibration.
Well,
And what
didn't
did
you
they?
tell me that they brace you? You can feel them
Yes,
bracing you?
I started to notice that my feet felt extremely heavy when I was in these sessions. I'm like, what is that? Like I was wearing weights on my feet. And they later told me, well, yeah, of course, we're grounding you because this is such powerful energy. We don't want you to be, floating off into the stratosphere somewhere. Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that. But it it
I
was
would
just,
come
it's
find
so
you.
interesting. Yes, thank you. Um, so they are looking out for me, but these sessions are unbelievable, not just for me, but for the clients. Everybody's like, wow. And what I've noticed is that my experiences and theirs are often very, very similar. And then the next day after a session/activation, I sent a very detailed audio report of what happened and send photos of the crystal layout because there's certain crystals you have to use too with the archangels. They've told us what they are.
Yeah.
And for those of you who are interested, they are rose quartz, clear quartz, angelite, and moonstone. Okay. Anyway, that is the procedure. So it kind of very much of a lockstep kind of, process. And then after the person has been activated, we do like to stay in touch with them. I always ask for feedback. Jody always, asks for feedback. We try to stay in touch. And that is why we are beginning Zoom meetings for the AAP participants. We just felt there was something more we needed to do, because people sometimes feel alone. You know how it is on these journeys. You're just, okay, now what happens, right?
Yeah,
So, yeah.
absolutely. That's why
Oh,
I
and
put
the
it.
archangels are approving of it. So good.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's why I put a membership community together because
Right.
people need each other. And I think
Right.
too, in these times where everything's so, woo, uh,
Chaotic?
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Yes, that.
I had a word and I didn't want to use that one. So that's good. So chaotic. Um, but yeah, and also AI and all of that because we're we're seeing more and more fakery out there and mimicry
Mm-hmm.
and things like that. And you don't really know even if an image anymore is trustworthy. And
Exactly.
Yeah.
so having a community where you can, even if you're on Zoom, you're still looking at each other, speaking with each other,
Right.
and your name is there. And there's just something about the realness to that coming together like that is just, it makes all the difference.
Right.
Well,
Agreed.
I think that Kathleen and I have talked many times that that's one of the greatest benefits to us having become such good friends because I mean, we're all in this together. We all have our gifts and that, but unless you you have unless you exercise some of these psychic gifts, and everyone has psychic gifts, whether they've recognized them or discovered them or not, we all have them. But unless you actually practice some of these gifts, like I channel and uh, do Reiki, as does Kathleen, you don't really get it. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, you can imagine it and it's cool and it sounds great and everything, but unless you experience it, you don't really get it completely. And so that's why we value each other so much, and that's why we wanted to start these Zoom classes so that everybody has each other that they can relate to and that who can relate to them. I think it's
Yeah.
very
Mm-hmm.
important and very hard to
Yeah.
find.
It
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I totally agree. It can make all the difference. It's like,
Yeah.
it's like with Reiki. You said it so well, Jody. You can take a class. It doesn't really do much. You've got
Right.
to be in the energy. You have to be in the
Right.
energy to get the
Exactly.
benefit. You can't go out and buy experience, with the energy.
You
And
can't just Google it, right?
that's right. We keep coming back to Google, but
yeah, Google is very
Yeah.
limited in terms of practical experience and information about spiritual topics. Yeah.
Yeah. And I bet ChatGPT is as well. But yeah, you can't
I'm
bottle
sure.
the experience. You can't fake it. You're either practicing or you're not. You're either gaining the experience or you're not. And so it's so important. And then to be able to talk to other people about it who
And
can,
not worry about what their response is going to be. I mean,
yes.
there's something very important about being accepted.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
And
yes.
and again, that's why we think it's so important for these Zoom meetings to start, because I mean, if you've never met someone, aren't you a little hesitant to tell them some of the things that you do? Because
Yeah.
you never know how they're going to react. And
Well,
certainly there's no wrong reaction. It's just that there's a lot of narrow-minded reaction and ignorance out there. So when you're around other people who accept you at face value and who value you, and also in so many cases, certainly in the case of channeling, who validate you, when you're getting
mm-hmm.
similar messages, that's a kick.
Yeah.
So you can't get that just anywhere.
Yeah. You
Right.
can't get it alone. And I think that
Right.
that is another really important point, because compassion, we can have self-compassion, we can be kind to ourselves, but that's not what it's about, It's about each other, and it's about
Right.
relating to each other and having that shared experience, I think. And so, yeah, that's wonderful. Like-minded people, when they get together, oh my goodness, there's a power
Exactly.
generated in that unlike anything else. And so
Right.
that's really
And
exciting.
It
and that
is.
kind of power that you're talking about, when it's high vibrational power, like
Oh,
it
yeah.
is when you
Mm-hmm.
get a bunch of psychically gifted people together, that vibration is so high, and it makes you high,
Yeah.
it brings you higher, and there's just nothing better than no better shot in the arm than that.
I
Yeah.
agree. It's the truth. Yeah, well, I know
Agreed.
how I feel after speaking with a client and doing the work. And I may be exhausted. I may be dizzy. Yeah, I usually am. But I just feel so good. It's like a shot of, super duper B12. It's unbelievable. And I have a couple clients, Andrea, who belong to your community, and they've told me how helpful it's been for them, because so many people that I work with, I would say almost all of them, have lamented the fact that, I can't talk to people about this. My family thinks I'm weird. I mean, well, mine does too, but oh well. I'm kind of used to it
Well,
now.
and someone said the spiritual path is a lonely path, and
It
that's true
is.
in so many
Yes.
ways. I mean, the people in my life who love me and appreciate me don't necessarily understand me. And when you find someone who understands you and who can actually relate to what you're doing, wow, what a kick, right?
It is. Yeah. Makes all the difference. Yeah. So
Yeah. And that's
we
why it's
like
so
to think we're
wonderful.
doing a good thing. I think we are.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so
And
too.
that's so wonderful that you're here, because we're like-minded. And I know our
Yeah.
listeners and our viewers out there are too. And it's been wonderful having you both. I can't believe we're done. We're
I
really
know.
a little over right now,
Yeah.
but I want to check with you and ask, is there anything else that you wanted to say and you didn't get a chance yet? Anything else before we let everybody know how to contact you?
I think you've done a great job of, getting it all out of us, Andrea. I believe from my point of view, I can't think of anything that was missed. How about you, Jody?
I don't have anything off the top of my head. I think I agree. You did a great job of
Oh,
pinpointing the major points. I would just add that if anyone has any questions, or if you're not sure, then shoot us an email. I know I speak for both of us when I say we're happy to expand on anything or answer any questions that you have. And you know, we feel like this is very important work. It's divine work, and we take our responsibility in it very seriously.
Yes, we do.
So
yes, we do.
Contact us anytime.
Wonderful. Yeah. Wonderful. And your contact information, how can they most easily find you?
Well, I have a fully functioning website now, which I didn't the last time I talked to you.
That's right.
It's Ask the Angels 222, and that's .com, and the very similar email, asktheangel222@gmail.com. So that's the fastest and easiest way.
Fantastic. Yeah. Kathleen?
For me, I still have, my website has been updated and upgraded to reflect my, my more recent work. It's the same as it always was, universalheart.net. And my email, kjohnson@universalheart.net. So reach out. Anyone has questions. I'm always happy to answer questions. Always, always,
Me
always.
too.
I love questions.
Retired teacher.
I know. And I used to teach too. I think, all three of us are teachers,
Yeah, that's wonderful. Wonderful to have you both as a resource for that. And this is just fascinating. And I'm really excited to bring something to the audience about how they might take a step to opening what's already there for them. It'll resonate with some, it won't with others. And that's beautiful because, as you both have said throughout our time here, we're all different. We're all on different paths. And I think it is all about what works for us at any given time. And that can change, and it's always perfect timing. And with that, I just am so glad that you are here. Thank you so much for being with me.
Thank you, Andrea.
Thanks for inviting me. It was a pleasure as always.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I agree. Thanks. And from myself and the team here at Beyond the Reiki Gateway, we'd like to say thank you to our listeners for all of your support, including leaving great reviews, becoming BTRG insiders, and sharing the show with your friends and family. Drop us a line at info@beyondthereikigateway.com anytime. Tell us what's on your mind and take great care. Until next time. Thank you for listening, and you can check the show notes or visit the website beyondthereikigateway.com to find out more about the podcast and connect with me. Please keep in mind that views and opinions expressed in the show don't necessarily reflect those of the podcast or anyone affiliated with its production or advertising. This program is presented for your entertainment only, and all information provided is to be utilized at the listener's own discretion. I, along with the BTRG team, hope you enjoy the show as much as we enjoy making it for you. Wishing you highest blessings until we meet again beyond the Reiki Gateway.